Hi everyone, I hope you've had a great summer. I have had a lovely few weeks, as offline as possible. Had a big keynote in London and then spent several weeks in France and Italy, specifically Florence, with my family. And glad to be home and got very sick, so that set me back several weeks, and now kind of just getting into it, and just a few weeks of summer left. So I hope you've had a great summer as well. And I have a few updates I want to share with you, including a trip I would like to host, walking in the footsteps of the Florentine Renaissance in maybe November. And so if you are interested in learning more about that, send me a note if you would like to go to Italy and explore and inhabit the lives of statesmen and great men and women who built the Florentine Renaissance by going back to the wisdom of the past to lead better lives, and specifically embodying the lives and work and legacy of Civic Renaissance humanists who applied the wisdom of antiquity to meet the needs of the present and better their own society. I'm curious how many of you would be interested in doing that in maybe a week or 10 days in Florence, a different day, being in a different part of the city, and literally walking in the footsteps of Niccolo Machiavelli, of Petrarch, of Dante, of the Medici family, and this patron class who helped build and support a ecosystem of artists and creators and inventors like Botticelli and Michelangelo and Da Vinci and Raphael. So if that sounds fun to you, going to Florence and embodying history, I'd love to hear from you. Just reply to this email, send me a note that says Civic Renaissance Tours, and let's stay in touch. And I think I'll host an info session in the next few weeks to explore that idea. And but yeah, when I was in Florence, I was like, just everywhere you go is so inspiring, and it's tactile and just beautiful. And of course, being in Italy, being in the old world, you get to embody la dolce far niente, which is the sweetness of doing nothing. It's just restful, relaxing. Skole, this ancient Greek word that is our word for school, the etymological root of our word for school, that meant purposeful leisure and rest in ancient Greece, and it allowed people to have that free time to self-cultivate and unlock their own human potential, to create, to write, to philosophize, to converse. And that's what I want that to be part of this trip as well. We're not going to go, but it's going to be restful, and we're going to do less but inhabit the spaces and the people that we learn about. So speaking of Skole and rest, we're hosting our next Civic Renaissance Retreat in just a few weeks. We are almost at capacity, but if you are really excited to come, if you were interested in joining us last time around and couldn't, this is going to be August 21st, 22nd. So write to me, just respond to this email and put Civic Renaissance Retreat in the subject line and tell me that you're interested in coming and why you're interested in coming. These are convenings I do with leaders from across politics, geography, and vocation that embody the world of multi-dimensional human flourishing, the Renaissance that we aspire to build, and then we leave commissioned to build it. I call them feasts for mind, body, spirit. And the last one we had in April, we had 50 leaders from across the country and Canada, and there was just such a demand to do this again. We had Mitch Daniels there last time, Daryl Davis last time, people who are on the front lines and have been incredible leaders who led according to ideas and across party lines, and just embody our work, our task of humanizing our public discourse and creating a renaissance in our world. So it's so hopeful, so joy-filled. If you were disappointed to miss it last time, let me know if you would like to try and join this time, and I'll let you know about capacity and send you an invitation, possibly. And I want to share with you a few insights I've had recently about haters and what to do about criticism. I've had a few recent brushes with criticism recently that I know pale in comparison to what some of you listening to this have endured. Certainly it's mild compared to what leaders in public life right now, nationally, statewide, endure. But it was enough that it caused me to pause. And I get this question enough that I wanted to address it. So I'll share with you a few stories, and we'll talk about what to do in light of criticism. I just last week spoke to 300 city managers in Arizona. It was such an honor to be with them. These are CEOs of communities, of cities across Arizona, and there's a mayor, there's a city council, and then they have city managers that actually do the work of leadership, that are not elected. They're kind of career service, public servants, and subject matter experts on how to govern a city well. So that was fabulous to be with them, and I got this question there as well. Like, what do we do with this one citizen or this one city councilor that just seems impossible to please, and they just want to criticize, they want to hate, they want to tear it down, they want to destroy? What do we do about that? And what's the answer? So I'll tell you a few stories. Back in June, or back in May, I saw someone in my community had hosted a listening session for one of our community's mayoral candidates. And I loved that idea. It was a listening session inviting neighbors to kind of hear what this mayor stood for, what their platform was, and an opportunity to share what we want in our neighborhood, in our community. And I thought, I'm less interested in hearing from mayors, but I love the idea of getting my neighbors together and letting a mayoral candidate hear from us. Like, what do we want? And hear from each other and start building. As many of you know, I'm doing this incredible work with leaders across the country, not just speaking, not just, leading a book read of my book, but building, creating and co-creating with local leaders. And I call myself not just an author, not just a speaker, but a civic architect, and it's a privilege to see the creation and the innovation in these communities. So I love the opportunity to start doing this in my own community. And so I went to the other mayoral candidate, or maybe they'd come to me and asked if I was interested in that. But anyway, I said, yeah, I would host a listening session where it's, not a campaign event, but it's an opportunity. I wanted to gather with neighbors, hear what they wanted. I wanted to share some of my ideas, and that's what leadership should be. You should listen to what citizens want and then build it and do it. You're a public servant. That's literally what that means. So, and to have our voices and our ideas lead and build their platform. So all that to say, I host this listening session, and I made the mistake of posting about it online. I had a little poster because I wanted to invite my neighbors in my community. And I probably posted it on one of these groups that was a bit bigger than just my immediate community, and that was probably my fault, a miscalculation, because immediately I was attacked and the whole project was viciously maligned, and I was essentially caught in the crossfire because if you're a public leader in public life, you're going to have people that you've made decisions that people don't like, and you're going to get criticized. And so basically people who didn't like this particular mayoral candidate were attacking me for even hosting this, what was recast as a political event for him. And some people screenshotted the invite, posted on their personal, and then found terrible things online about me, for example, that I worked in federal government, or that I've spoken at certain groups before. I speak all over the place, anywhere. I've literally been in 160 cities in 5 countries, and far right groups, far left groups. So the fact that they would find certain groups and say, oh, she's a member of this group, and it's I speak anywhere. My work is about how to flourish across difference, and if you invite me to come talk about us, I will do that. That's literally my job, literally what I do. And they did whatever they could to make me look bad in order to hurt this mayoral candidate. Oh, look at this mayoral candidate going to the home of this partisan person because she's spoken to this partisan group before, and they called me anyway, all that to say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I have a political persuasion. I'm allowed to do that, and I'm also allowed to host a listening session. That's not a crime, and that's actually a good thing. Anyway, And then from that post, like hundreds of people commented, oh, like, one of my contractors came out of the woodwork and said, oh, like this person doesn't pay her contractors. And and you probably thought I would never see it. And someone had screenshotted this to me and sent me the link to this public post where people were just piling on. This was a contractor I'd paid $50,000 to and like didn't do what I had paid him to do. Like I had to pay other people tens of thousands of dollars to like either fix his work or repair it. So the fact that he's like posting online and saying all this stuff about me, like, oh, she doesn't pay her contractors, when he like was totally dishonest. Like I remember seeing all this in one spot, like being accused of being a political hack and people coming from my past and backbiting me when I couldn't defend myself. And I was gutted. I was like, did I make a mistake here? Did I do something wrong in hosting this event? And I felt really afraid of my community. Like, these are people that live, in my community and know where I live. And I just felt so attacked, so misunderstood, like that people would take one group I've spoken to and pretend that represents the whole sum total of who I am. People would try and weaponize the past against me. I felt so misunderstood. Like, literally, that's the purpose of my work, is to gather people across difference and to not let differences be the defining facet of who we are, but be sources of joy and shared flourishing. So to be so misunderstood, to be so maligned for trying to do something so service-oriented to my community. Like, I wanted to get to know my neighbors, and I wanted to invite neighbors into my home and a public leader to co-create together. And I was made to regret that. I was like, do I cancel this event? And I didn't. The event, we proceeded. We had about 50 people come out. People I never would have met before because they saw it online. They came. And they were hungry for the kind of conversation and community that I was offering. The poster I made said, building a Civic Renaissance in Indianapolis. And, I saw neighbors that I haven't talked to in years, and it was just so joy-filled, so hope-filled, and I realized I'm so glad I did it. I realized that there's a duality to putting yourself out there and building. On one hand, by making that public invitation, I subjected myself to people taking my invitation out of context and assuming the worst about it, and assuming the worst about me, and weaponizing me in order to hurt someone else. And that was a risk that I took. But at the same time, in making that risk, I set the table and opened the door for people who I otherwise never would have met, who are hungry and wanted to be there. And that felt so beautiful. I felt so affirmed by that. Like, there's going to be risks involved in leadership. You're not going to please everyone, and in fact, you're going to offend some people. And what's that Churchill line? Maybe it's apocryphal, but it's a great one. Like, you have enemies, good. It means you've stood up for something somewhere at some time. Like, yeah, you're going to disappoint people in public life as a leader, and that's going to happen. So that was one insight I came to after the fact. That I was just so affirmed, so glad we pushed forward and, didn't cancel the event. And because it set the table for a really beautiful conversation about renewal in my few block radius with a public leader who has the authority and the position to actually do something about it. He's a mayoral candidate now, but he's been on the city council for over a decade. And so, like, he's someone who literally knows how to get things done. And, like, it was a great idea. I stand by it. I'm glad we did it. Second, I'm reminded that, our lives, let our lives be our argument. Like, there were moments I was tempted on the comment section of some of these posts to be like, hey guys, you are totally misunderstanding the assignment. Like, this is an invitation for you to sit down with your neighbors and talk about renewal here. What kind of changes do you want to see? And I wanted to share with the people who, tried to pigeonhole me with one political party or, as a fringe, person. I wanted to say, look, like, yeah, I've spoken to that group. I've spoken to this group too. Like I speak to very reputable groups, courts, and big Fortune 500 companies. Like I go where I am invited and where people are hungry for this. And this work is not for one vocation, one political party. This is for, I'm eager to serve anyone who wants to build a renaissance and to build flourishing across difference where they are. And I wanted to share that and say, look, you're misunderstanding, like defend myself. To the contractor, who was like, she doesn't pay. I wanted to be like, oh my gosh, I wanted to post like dozens of photos and receipts and bills of like all of the stuff, all of his lies, all of his like abusive text to me. And it's like, I had all these like ideas for how to defend myself, and I didn't, because I realized that that beaking online, like A, nothing's ever resolved in the comments section. B, no one's ever going to be persuaded by in the comment section, and it often gives more credence to a controversy, a kerfuffle than is necessary, than you would if otherwise just you ignored it. And two, those people who go online and run their mouth, like that's all they do most of the time. They complain and they put it online and because they think that's power, but that's actually not power. What is powerful is what we did by showing up with 50 other, leaders in our community and neighbors and saying, let's get to work. What are we actually going to do to make our community better and more beautiful today? Like, where are we going to start? And I'm reminded of the story of Albert Schweitzer. He's a hero of civility in my book, and also in the children's book, Heroes of Civility, this resource in children's curriculum that I've built as a classroom resource. And, Albert Schweitzer, he was Alsatian German during World War I, and he was really sensitized towards the plight of people who were subjected to the colonial powers and colonized in Africa and just subjugated and abused and dehumanized. And he was very critical. He said, look, you quote unquote civilized Western powers, like you are actually acting like truly barbaric towards these other human beings from other places, saying that you are in the name of civilization, but like you're not. You're dehumanizing them, and you're not a civilization, you're a barbarism. And he says, a true civilization is grounded in what he called reverence for life. And for him, that was plant, animal, human life. And he said that a civilization that measures itself by sophistication of language, of technology, of GDP, of architecture, of art, that is a faux civilization. A true civilization is grounded in a reverence for life, he said. And he said, don't just talk about, civilizing people and helping people, like do it in a way that actually helps them. And he did himself. He said, I can't control what global governments do, and I can't snap my fingers and end an unjust systemic system like colonialism, but I can control myself. And he chose to be part of the solution. He got up and left Europe and moved to Africa, modern day Gambia, and he opened a hospital. He was a physician. And people from across Africa would travel hundreds of miles, days and weeks to be seen and treated at his hospital that he called Lambaréné. And I love this story because he said, let your life be your argument. He said, everyone can build their own Lambaréné. And I love this because people can yell and complain and talk all they want online, and we don't have to respond. Actions speak louder than words. That is the truly powerful thing. So build your own Lambaréné. Let your life be your argument. Those people that said, I'm a political hat, that I don't pay my contractors, like I showed up and served my community even when it felt costly to do so, and I will continue to do so because that's the right thing to do. And my life is my argument of doing the work of showing up. And those people online, that's not the powerful move, to complain online, to live, to show up when it's hard. That is what leaders do. And that's what to do in the face of haters. You keep living a life of integrity. You keep doing the work. You let your actions speak louder than your words. And that's its own reward. and that is what will be your legacy over time. So curious to hear from you. Tell me stories of your encounter with haters recently, with critics. Eager to hear from you, your techniques for dealing with criticism, with haters online, especially. Not everything deserves our time, and to build that community of people that are on the same page where we can nurture each other. That's what we're doing at the Civic Renaissance Retreat. That's what Civic Renaissance is. People, this is a community of co-creators. I want you to, yes, consume this work, consume these ideas, but I want you to actually live it too. And I want you to, read The Soul of Civility and be inspired by it. But I want it to change how you live and how you lead. And that's what this work is about. So curious to hear from you. Drop in the comments your stories, your insights, your reflections, anything about this post. Eager to hear from you. I hope you've had a great summer, and we'll talk soon.